Hey guys, welcome back to the First Responder Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Waters. I'm a fire captain out here in LA County. I love real estate. I love connecting with first responders from all over the country. Today, I have an awesome guest. It's a firefighter paramedic, Tony Daniels, coming in from Ohio. So, hey, what's up, Tony? How are you? Thanks for jumping on today.
I appreciate it, man. I'm excited to share a little bit that I know about real estate, but also just being a full time fireman and how that kind of work with kind of being in real estate.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to know you. I know we've been chatting for, gosh, it's probably been over a year now, and we were just chatting offline about how the social media world connects you, and that's what I love about this stuff, guys. You don't have to do real estate in your hometown. There's connections all over the country. One of my main mantras of this podcast is I want to connect not only first responders, just people in the real estate community all over the country, because we all help each other. It's one thing that firemen do. We help other people. And one thing that real estate investors do is they help each other in real estate. So first off, without going into crazy detail, just give me a little rundown. Like who's Tony? Like how do we get to know you a little bit on just the basic level?
Yeah, man. So grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Grew up in a pretty rough area back when I was kind of growing up. You know, the gangs were heavy in existence in our kind of where we Section 8 kind of area. But luckily enough, I had a really good mom and really good siblings who kept us grounded, kept us off the street. And sports and kind of like the Boys and Girls Club was kind of really pivotal in that kind of keeping us grounded and keeping us focused on getting out of the area that we were living in. So that was kind of a big deal with us growing up, going to that Boys and Girls Club. You got to see kind of mentors, you got to see people who were kind of farther along, and then you got that safe kind of nurturing environment that a lot of individuals that when I grew up missed. Which again, now that I'm in Cincinnati, I'm making runs on a lot of individuals that I grew up with, man, and it's pretty sad situation. But I'm just glad that my mom made that ultimate sacrifice to get us out of that neighborhood.
Yeah, big shout out to the moms out there that they raising some good sons. So yeah, that sounds like not that you had a rough childhood, but like it's probably interesting to actually work in the area that you like grew up in, right? So like when you're a younger guy and you're going through the YMCA stuff, did you know any firemen? Like, did you have any relatives? Did you always want to be a fireman? Because that's a question a lot of people get, and some people did and some people didn't. Like, what did you want to grow up to be?
Yeah, it was kind of cool. So going to our Boys and Girls Club, we had to go past a firehouse, and it was kind of one of the busier firehouses. And just so happened that we had a football coach who was Cincinnati Firefighter also. So getting to see him kind of in action, we like I said, we would go past that firehouse, and they'd be out playing cornhole, and they're around the fire. So I'm like, man, that's kind of cool. Just trying to figure out what they did, and then having access to our coach, he would tell us some stories and about being in a firehouse, some of the runs he made it, and it seemed super interesting. So as I started to get older, I got exposed to, hey, this is actually something that I can do. It was kind of a crazy situation. So growing up, high school, I wanted to go to what they call Scarlet Oats, which is, high school program for firefighter. But because I played sports, they kind of looked down upon it if you were trying to go to college. So back when I was younger, like the Scarlet and what now Butler Tag was kind of like where they sent you if you were getting in trouble. They would kind of threaten you with it, like, hey, you don't get your stuff together, we're going to send you to, Scarlet Oats. But now looking back, it's like, I'm so passionate about talking to younger individuals about those programs, because again, a lot of the things that I ended up paying for as I was part-time was things that I could have got for free in high school. Coming out could have, really made an impact, but, worked all these kind of what I call endless jobs just because, again, trying to find my way of what I wanted to do. And obviously it brought me back to being a firefighter.
Yeah, I love that. Like you mentioned something that's near and dear to my heart is the coach stuff. I think those were probably a lot of our early mentors. So, shout out to the. Did you play what sport? Football or?
So football, yeah, football, basketball, but football is kind of near and dear to me, my brother's heart. My brother was a high school head coach and coached some in college also. played in college too. So coaching is definitely kind of near dear to my heart. You get a lot of the exposures of, hey, really being that mentor, that parent figure. You're a therapist. You're all these things, right? So that's kind of what brought me back to. So I'm still doing some speed and agility stuff. I've got a facility in my area, so we specialize now in volleyball specific, but we did all sports before, but now volleyball is kind of our main focus. So I'm near dear. I'm through and through a coach. At the end of the day.
I love that. Yeah, I grew up. So a little bit about me for those the listeners that don't know. I grew up with my dad coached high school and college football, and so he coached me from the time I was 5 years old, and now he's 78 years old, and I'm coaching I have twin boys that are 12, so I'm coaching their flag football team. I've done that for about 4 years, and
Nice.
this is awesome, you guys. He talk about like never wanting to stop being a mentor and a coach. To this day, he runs. He's 78 years old. He runs a practice with 10, 12-year-olds by himself for an hour on Thursdays before the game, and his practices are way better than mine. But like, it's become a passion of mine because there's nothing better than a kid having their father around, number one, but number two, like I get the chance to make an impact on these other kids, and I just love the game. But tonight we're having our first game of the season. So last night, in between my real estate stuff, I was going through plays, reviewing. I know I'm crazy, but I was reviewing some tape reviews from last season, even though it's flagged. One of the moms records the stuff, and so I go back and kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. But there's 3 generations of Waters football players on the field at the same time, and it's the most amazing moment of my life. So that's something that I love doing, and now I'm kind of bringing that into the real estate world. Like I got the coach stuff in my family, but I think it's important to do. So, how old were you when you got hired as a fireman?
I was 23.
Man.
I was 23.
Okay.
I was 23. So, I've been there 13 years now. So still, still considered, one of the younger guys, but now that we're hiring so many new kids. So, you're kind of in that in between where you are a mentor, you are a father figure to a lot of those individuals, but also, you're still that new kid. And where I'm at, I'm in a really busy area. So we make a lot of runs, and we're actually the busiest in CFD. So we make a lot of runs. So it's a lot of cool opportunities to, kind of coach a lot of those new kids up with fire stuff. And then also, you have so much downtime, you start to kind of talk about other things. And I'm kind of got that obsessive personality. So I'm glad I've never tried any hard drugs, because I know, just with me, how I am, I go in on something and I kind of go all in. So a lot of times I have to catch myself talking about real estate so much. So it's kind of cool that now that they're starting to actually listen. I've got a couple kids who've really started to gravitate and listen, and they're starting to kind of make some moves, and you kind of get that little proud moment of like, okay, like he's actually listening.
I love that, because I think there's different ways to mentor on the job, right? There's, we're supposed to set good examples. I know you're a paramedic. I was a paramedic, and just doing the right stuff, getting there, working hard. I think most firefighters, and I won't speak on behalf of all first responders, but most firefighters have that obsessive personality trait. And whatever it is they're doing, whether it's working out or having a second business or even just their job, because they have that pride in like the work ethic. And I talked a little bit about it on the last podcast, but I think that's why firefighters and first responders actually make good investors, because we have that hustle in us, right? And so I want to come back to that topic in a second about some of the people on your job. So actually, let's just jump into it right now since it's fresh. So I'm kind of in this weird spot. I don't know if you agree, but like there's a lot of people on the job that are interested in this. And I feel like when I first got into real estate investing on the job, I had this moment of clarity. It was this weird moment where I was like, wow, something's actually working. And I tried a lot of stuff. I had an e-bike company, I had an Amazon company. They did great, but there was a lot of effort, and I didn't love it. It wasn't something I just loved. And so when I bought my first rental property and it worked, and I was like, wow, that is not as hard as I thought it was, and it's a lot more lucrative than I thought it was. I went back to the station and I started like shouting it on the rooftops. I started talking to my friends and family, and I got to this point where I could just see it in the eyes of people around me. They were probably somewhat annoyed by it, right? Because they're like, "Yeah, we get it, Brian, you're doing this, but this is not for us." So I guess the question that I want to ask you is like, how are the people at your department or in your friends and family responding to what you're doing? And how do you handle that? Do you talk about it a lot? And are they interested? And have you changed your tone? Because I know you've been doing this for as long as me. Like, I just feel like I have to catch myself talking about it so much because I'm so passionate. And it's because I want people to do it too, because I know it works. But like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and for me, like I said, I with that personality I have, I kind of go all in on things, and I don't just go in a little, right? So I got pretty heavy into like the credit card hacking with the reward points, and guys see me traveling and they just make fun of me, like, "Oh, you're always going somewhere." I'm like, "Buddy, I'm not paying for hotels, I'm not paying for flights. Like, I can show you how to do this, but I think obviously most firemen are A-type personalities, right? So you could bring a really good thing to them, and if they didn't come up with it, then it must be something that is a scam, or they don't care unless they see it on social media, right? So everybody's kind of into that get rich quick scheme, right? And again, knowing that that real estate is a get rich slow scheme, right? It takes 10 years plus to really see the fruits of your labor. I think that's kind of why most people don't get along. And I've come to a realization that that is okay, but it's my duty to continue to talk about it, because again, time continues to go. But if you're lost in the loop of like, hey, chasing that shiny object, which for us, shiny object is overtime, right? We can work pretty much as much overtime as we can, but what are you doing with that overtime? And trying to get them to understand the whole logic behind assets, and how to get started with just that primary home, right? That's how I was able to get started. Didn't know anything about, refinance and all these things that came about. But once I got around the right people, then I was exposed to that. It was like, I've been sitting on all this equity that I did not know existed. And I was able to then kind of go through that process. So it's been a struggle. And for me, it hurts sometimes, because it's like, here goes this vehicle that I know that I can see in the future, right? I can literally talk to people who have been doing it and see the results that will come. But it's a struggle to talk to family and friends who don't see that same vision. But I know that at some point, they're going to be ready, and then that's when I'm going to be right there, ready to walk them through that process.
Yeah, I think you made a good point. Is like they'll come to you when they're ready, and that's kind of what I realized. I was actually at a real estate conference in Vegas a couple of weeks ago, which was awesome. There was Pace Morby was there, all the big guys talking, and someone got up in the crowd and asked a very similar question. He's like, I have become very successful in real estate, and I tell all my friends, and he's like, I've even lost friends, like, because I'm so obsessed about it. And the response that came back from the speaker, what I kind of like, he's like, just do this. He's like, just keep doing what you're doing, because what happens when you start becoming successful, people will come out to you eventually. So it's like, it's more organic when they actually come to you. And not that like we're on here to brag about what we're doing. We're just showing you, me and Tony's whole deal here is we're trying to show you what's actually working, like legitimately working, not speculation. Like, we're actually creating real wealth. And so people are now coming to me, and it's good, because now I feel more comfortable. I know they're interested in it. So it takes a little bit off my plate and off my brain, where I don't have to tell the people, because you know what, I'm in charge of myself, and I'm in charge of the ones that are interested, and the rest, there's a million ways to do it, right? They could go make money other ways. I just want to make sure they understand the opportunities, and I'm actually just trying to share some of the stupid mistakes that I made as a young fireman. So yeah, I love that answer. That's we're kind of in the same boat, I feel, with that.
But and talking to our teams that deal with our firemen who are struggling mentally, right? Majority of the issues come from home life, right? So it's either wife or finances, right? So it's like, I now have been put in a lot of emphasis on our officers that it's your duty to talk finances and talk to the younger people about the do's and don'ts when the early phases of getting into the job and all these different things. I was like, if you're saying you care about this kid's mental, physical well-being, and you know, okay, yes, we're making sure that this person is ready physically, but how do we make sure they're ready mentally? And the only way you can do that is by having a clear mind. And if they're coming to work because they're stressed out over money, they're stressed out over things, then how could we then say they have a sound mind to then go out and do things in the world? So for me, it's just a hey, you've got to make sure they're ready mentally, and that's one of the ways that you can do that is by talking about finances.
I absolutely love that. That's probably the most important thing we're going to talk about today. I've been a part of our peer support team at LA County for over 10 years, and there's one thing that I want the listeners to understand about for the first responder world, and this is why I think it's so important that Tony and I are on here talking and being transparent and kind of opening up. A long time ago, the first responder world would kind of like just hold all the stuff that they had within them, right? We see trauma every day. We see kids being injured. We see car accidents. We have our own people getting hurt. Like, people call us on their worst days, and it's a cliche to say, but it truly is. And so the analogy is like our cups get overflowed, and then finally, like, we get problems. Firemen could have the biggest, not to veer off the real estate subject, but just for 1 second, the biggest death in the fire department is actually suicide, and the biggest divorce rate is because of finances. And because I don't think a lot of these guys, they come into these jobs, they're 22 years old, they're making over 100 grand, and they just came from working on an ambulance making $8. And they're like, what the heck do I do with this? So they're not financially responsible. And that was me. I made some dumb mistakes, but I could not agree more. And this is something I hope my department listens to and kind of takes this into consideration. We now have like the Fire Wives program, and they actually go talk to the brand new firefighter girlfriends, and
wow.
And what they do is they go, hey guys and gals, the partners, men, women, whatever it is, the spouses go and say, hey, I'm a spouse of a 10-year on the job firefighter. This is what you have to expect. Your firemen and female are going to come home tired from the job. They're going to come home mentally drained. They're going to come home. You need to prepare for that, and this is how you could help them. And so that's important, but no one goes in there and talks about finances, because, and I think you're right, like 10 years down the line, we actually do every month we send in stats about what our phone calls were about.
Okay.
And every single month it's about finances almost exclusively, and also about like overworking and stuff. So if we can clear the air on that and have like better talks about finances, not to tell them what to do, but just the expectations of what this job could be. Don't get sucked into the overtime trap. Don't buy stupid stuff before you can afford it. Don't rely on it, because when you do, you're stressed. That's going to make us a better firefighter. That's going to make us be able to serve better in our communities. And it's also going to allow us to come to work with that, like, just taking that weight off our shoulders. We already have enough weight coming on our shoulders every day. So, like, thank you for bringing that up. I think it's so important that we do that. And
yeah, that's been my number one thing. I've been really stressing. I still don't know why it's so taboo. Right, it's still taboo to talk about finances. And even to the point to where a lot of firemen will lie to you because they are that A type of personality, and they don't want to have people know that they're in financial distress, right? But it's like there's probably so many people that could help you in those situations, and that's where again I struggle with, and that's why I've been really attacking those younger generation, is just kind of letting them know, like, hey, like you said, the do's and don'ts, but just knowing that getting something outside of the fire service and not relying on that overtime to where you get to the, you buy the boat, then you got to buy a bigger truck for the boat, then you got to fix the boat, so it's all these things that you don't think about, because if everybody's around you buying a new car, it just becomes the norm to buy a new car. That's what everybody does. That's why he's doing it. So to talk through those things and understand that, hey, assets is kind of the let the asset pay for the boat, let the asset pay for the car. You can still get that, but here go ways to now to do it to where it's not directly coming out of, you know, the firefighter money, and it puts you in a better space when you're financially in a good place. Like the decisions you make are in such a good space because I'm not operating out of scarcity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if anyone wants to learn a little bit more about the asset and liability stuff, obviously Rich Dad Poor Dad is like the everyone talks about that. I literally bought 50 copies of it. I keep them in my locker and in my truck. And what I do is I hand them out. I hand them out to young firemen for free, or not just young firemen, anyone who wants them. So if any listeners want a copy of that, I'll send it to you. I think it's so important. You know, it got most people into this, and so it's like my little gift to people. I'm like, if you could just read this, it's like I'm a dumb fireman and I could barely read, you guys. And so I read this thing cover to cover like 3 times because it reads very easily. And yeah, I love that book. Check that out. So what I'd like to do is like, at what point I want to talk a little bit more about the real estate stuff, obviously. So at what point, so you're a young fireman, you're going through medic school and you're kicking butt at work and you're hanging out with the guys at the table, and all of a sudden, like, what point did the real estate stuff come into your world? And like tell me a little bit about your first journey into that. Like, what got you into that?
Yeah, honestly, man, I thought real estate was for rich people. That was, I mean, growing up, that was like people that I knew own houses. If we played like AAU basketball, we would go over, you know, people's house, and it's like they have this big, nice house, and that's what I always thought real estate was like you were rich and you had real estate, right? Everybody owned real estate who was rich. So as I started to dial into the Purple Bible, and then again getting into social media. I think social media has its positives, also, you know, it has its negative, but it really exposed me to what was possible. And then again, we bought our house early. We just happened to get lucky buying in an area that appreciated really well. So once I started to dial in, I realized that I needed some mentorship, right? I'm a big proponent of mentors. So, you know, as I started to dial in, I reached out to Mike Webb, and you know, I'm like, hey man, I need a 101 because I'm trying to do this thing, and for me, you know, I've got dyslexia, so I've got, you know, a learning disability. So everything for me, I have to do twice. Like I mean, I'm when I'm studying for things, I'm having to study. So I realized that I couldn't do it on my own because, again, I know how my brain operates. So, you know, I reached out to Mike, kind of let him know what I had going on, and I'm like, I just need, hey, do this only, because for me, too much information is no information. So if I've got too much access to information, I usually will do anything because it just overwhelms me. So he was able to break that process down into bite-sized pieces. Hey, just do this. Don't worry about nothing else. Just do this. And he, you know, I can happily say, you know, he was very instrumental in helping me get my first property.
That's awesome. I want to give a shout out to those guys, Mike, Tyler, and Aaron over at the First Responder Financial Freedom Group. So they created a Facebook group. They've had a podcast for a long time. Tony and I have both been a guest on there, and they're go-givers. Like, they're super smart. They created this, like, this space where other first responders, or really anyone, can go talk about business. And so big shout out to them. I'll definitely go check out their Facebook group. And you know, Tyler is in the mortgage world. You know, it's Maltese Mortgage. This is not an ad. It's just a shout out because I worked with him at the county. I send a lot of people their way because I think, not that I want to keep this tight niche in the first responder community. It just, we take care of each other. We trust each other. We have integrity. So I love that you got a mentor. I did the same thing. I had no idea what I was doing on how to buy properties out of state. And I would highly advise you find someone that you trust to show you, because the second I got into that community, my rocket ship just took off. I learned so much. You're paying for speed, and you're paying to not make mistakes. So you mentioned shiny object syndrome, and I think that's something a lot of us in the real estate world get. You know, there's, like, every day I'm on social media, or I'm going to a conference, or I'm reading blogs. There's so much you could do in real estate. So, like, for example, you guys, there's you could flip properties, you could buy out of state, you could buy ADUs, tiny homes, camping, glamping, land, RV parks. Like I can go on and on and on and on. The reality is none of them are wrong. But can you tell me a little bit about your strategy, number one? And number two, how do you avoid veering left and right with all those shiny objects in the room?
Yeah, so right now, one of my main strategies right now is we do room rentals for homeless vets. So that's kind of
Oh,
one of my main strategies right now. So I'm kind of like half and half. I actually also do some subleasing from other investors to do this model. So almost like an arbitrage. So that's again, that's more my passion project, right? Like, so I'm not making a ton of money off of that. That's more my passion project. That's to get me to having peace for me. You know, that's how we operate. Me and my family, we're kind of those go givers. But for me, I always knew that the single family and then kind of branching into multifamily was doable for me because I always wanted to self-manage and then eventually get to the point to where once I retire, I'm still able to self-manage. So putting that into place, and I realized pretty early that because I'm so unorganized, and I get reminded daily by my wife how unorganized I am. Going through a renovation project right now, and I'm starting to get better just with those systems and processes. I realized that I had to kind of go deep on one thing and not try to do these different things. Again, how my mind works, I knew it wouldn't work if I tried to do these different things. And that was the reason that I got the mentor, because I was doing exactly that. I was one week I was going down the rabbit hole of wanting to flip, and then multifamily, and then storage units and all these different things. So for me, it was just to kind of hone in on what I know works, which is single family. Usually, even the big players always have started with single family and then they've branched off. So I'm like, well, it must work. Let me go kind of deep in on that specific model, get really good at that model, and knowing that that's something I can then, if I come across family or friends who want to get involved, I am solid on that aspect to help them get involved. So everything for me was always kind of seeing that future of like, hey, they may be ready to jump in, and I want to be really good at single family to help as many people as I can get involved with the single family.
yeah. I think I always say like single family is the gateway drug, right? It's like, yeah. And one of the reasons why I agree with you, Tony, on this is I think, well, I know that everyone wants to do the biggest and best thing, right? But what I highly recommend, and this is something my mentor also told me, is like get hyper specifically active and good at one thing before you move on. Doesn't mean you can't go to do other stuff. Like I'm doing my first Airbnb right now, but that's at property number 20, right? And so like I had no business doing that before. I don't do multifamilies because I didn't know enough about the most basic. And so one thing I would like to tell the listeners is that single family homes, they're the most rented, the most purchased, and the most sold homes in the United States. It's kind of like that. I'm old enough. No one probably listening to this is going to be old enough to know like the Leave It to Beaver world, where it's like the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, grass with a dog and a white picket fence. That's the American dream, right? And so, what I advise people to think about is I try to teach people in the terms of firefighters and first responder world. We always think with contingencies, exit plans. What is the worst case that could happen? And so I just want you guys to think about this. You have a single family residence, and let's say things are really good in the economy. Well, someone coming up in the game, a brand new rookie fireman wants to buy a house. Well, that's someone you could sell a house to if you want to. Let's say things aren't great in the economy, like during COVID, and someone lost their job. Well, they're not gonna go rent an 8-unit apartment complex. They lost their house, maybe they got divorced, whatever. They're gonna move down into that single family. So like my personal strategy, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I like middle of the road, boring B-class neighborhoods that are sandwiched between areas that are maybe getting gentrified and maybe that are right on the edge of being nice. And so I'm always have the ability to sell, to buy, to rent to people coming up in both sides. And so that makes me sleep well at night, knowing that I've made that decision. Where if you have something else, like an apartment complex, there's only one person that's going to buy that, and it's going to be an investor on the way up.
Mm-hmm.
So you're giving yourself a lot of doubt in that situation. So get really good at that one item first, and so good at it. And then here's the thing: if you're doing so good at it, don't change it. Like, what's the point? Like, if you're making money and you're doing good, you're only going to get better and better and better. And each time, all the way up to 20, I've gotten so incredibly much better. I can look back at my first couple of properties. I'm like, oh my gosh, what in the world was I doing? I made money on accident because real estate works in that way, but I didn't know what I was doing. So like, what was it? Tell me about your first, I want to know your first deal actually.
Yeah. So it's kind of surreal now because I'm actually, 3 years, 2 weeks ago. So it's been 3 years since I bought my first one. And I'm now getting to the point where like literally today I just, got the appraisal back because I'm refinancing because, I'm like, hey, I've got an 8% mortgage on that. So I'm like, hey, rates are down. Let me, look into getting, a better rate. And it's just like, it increased how much? Like, so it's kind of cool. So Mike helped me get this one. So this was one, we paid 115 for. It was the perfect deal for me. And it was one of those things I was going back and forth and I almost did not buy it, but I knew that if I didn't act on this one now, I wouldn't do it because at first it was a 3-house package that he was selling. One of the guys that I was buying it from, and I was not ready for it to try to take down 3. So I was able to talk him into, giving me one of them. And it already had a tenant in it, Section 8 tenant. And the guy who owned it had owned it for a long time, and he didn't mess with the tenants because they were, good tenants. And he was like, I never raised the rent. I never did anything in that world. They were paying $800 and market rate was $1,700.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. So it was like, holy crap. So I was able to go in and just again with market rent, they knew that they were playing little to nothing because she was concerned that I was going to raise it higher than where it was. Right. So she came with that number. She was like, how about, we come in at this number because I know Section 8 will pay this. And I was like, done. Like, I didn't even go as far as to even try to figure out where she was as far as the rent rise. I just knew that if I didn't do that deal, I probably wouldn't do that. So she raised the rent to that price point, and it's $1,500. So we raised it from $800 to $1,500. So that was my first deal, and I didn't do anything to it because again, they were good tenants. They kind of did really well at managing it. So yeah, we just got appraisal back, and it's 199 now. So
yeah, Tony.
Yeah. So it was that was for me. It was like a surreal moment. Like, okay, this thing definitely works. I knew with my primary, but for me now, it's like I'm kind of going all in now. Like my family and friends thought I was crazy before. Just wait now, right? Like just wait now, because I'm about to be over the top just with seeing that, right? Like you can't unsee those things. You can't unsee those things once you see it. And that's what I always tell younger farmers. That's kind of my go-to. Is like you cannot unsee things once it happens in the real estate. Like you see it, and it's like, holy crap, you can't unsee that. Like it happened. Let me show you how. Like here, like I'm pretty open with numbers, so I'm even showing them numbers. Like I'm not a gatekeeper when it comes to that or hypothetical. Like I know a couple fireman buddies who talk like you would think they own property just the way they talk because they've seen something on social media, right? Like, and I always say like I've tried, a lot of different, when it comes to strategies. When it comes to kind of the social media, like I've used like this project here, I'm using 0% interest credit cards, like on my rehab. Like I got into the traveling stuff because like I said, it was earlier on with that. Like I just started my self-directed IRA. Like I'm learning these things, but I'm putting it in play because I see the power of all these different tools. And again, I'm kind of like, once you see it, it's like, holy crap, like you telling me you can buy real estate with a self-directed IRA, right? Like you see these things and it's almost like you're so pissed that it took you this long to learn these things, but it's like, what do you do with that information once you learn it?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think one thing I pride myself on too, and that 3 years back, like all these people, gurus on social media, they would talk about stuff, but they wouldn't really talk about numbers too much. So I always preface this, you guys, like firemen have integrity, and it's not being like a stupid term. It's not like braggadocious. We're not bragging. we want you to see the possibilities of what is out there, right? And there's two things I want to talk about. Number one, Tony bought a house for 115. So for those that say that there's no deals in this country, they're wrong, because we live out in California. Starter homes are $700,000-$800,000. So we could take the income that we're making, which is a good income as a firefighter or a police officer or nurse or doctor, whatever it is you do. I don't care, even if you just have a W-2 job. You could take that, and that's why I chose to go out of state. I'm getting brand new remodel homes, turnkey, with tenants, cash flowing 100% every time for like the 150 to 175 mark. I don't have to come up with all of it, right? And so, I want to piggyback on two things. Number one, when you're pulling money out of this deal, do you have to pay tax on it, Tony?
Oh man, that's the power of real estate. That was my selling point, right? Like, for me, once I did my first successful bird, which was my second project, so between that, like every project that I've done besides my first one, buying, where I didn't put in, anything besides that 20% down. I did put 20% down with a regular mortgage. Other than that, all of my deals have been burrs, where I've been able to pull out majority, even sometimes, pulling out more than I actually put in. So it's been wonders knowing and understanding that, that money has been coming back, tax free. And then once you start to talk about that around a firehouse, that's when you start to get people understanding. I mean, just for instance, I'm doing a deal now. I bought it for 54 from my HELOC. I used my HELOC on my house.
Like half the price of some car.
Yeah, like it's wild, right? Like, and I'm putting 50 into it, and that was the deal that I'm using. 0% interest credit cards right now for 12 months. So I'm kind of double dipping, because I'm using the 0% interest because I'm getting the reward points. So I'm getting the reward points. I'm putting that money, besides paying it off early, I'm putting that money into a high yield savings account, and then I'll hold that, that 0% until month 11, and then I'll pay that month off once I refinance. So I'm kind of that triple dip right now.
Is that money from a hard money lender, or
the 50,000?
Yeah, for the renovation.
So that's what I'm using as 0% interest credit cards.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I've been doing. There's companies that do like Fund and Grow, all these different companies that'll get you the 0%. Again, because of my personality, I dial in pretty heavy into kind of that model, and I've been able to do what they call credit card stacks. So being able to apply for 2 to 3 0% interest credit cards, and I just did one, and I got like $54,000 on 0% for 12 months. So that's been what I've been using. My last 3 deals, I've used that 0% interest credit cards for my rehab budget.
That's awesome. I love that. And one thing that's important that we kind of reiterate is, right now it's tax season, and one of the major topics right around the firehouse table, for those of you who've never sat at one, is probably the funnest. It's probably one of the better places on the planet. There's like, you're breaking bread with some of your best friends and women that you've worked with and been in the trenches with. The topics are outrageous sometimes, but they say we solve the world's problems at the firehouse table. But right now the hot topic is about taxes, and so people are, I wouldn't say complaining. They're discussing the fact that, oh man, I had to pay this much in tax, especially in California. And so my biggest thing right now is I'm talking to them about the ways that you can save money on taxes legally. I don't like to call them loopholes. They're actually rules that we're supposed to be using. And, Tony mentioned that he's able to pull out tax-free money from real estate. So I feel like we're on a very parallel path, right? Like almost the same. I'm older than you, but we got hired around the same time. We're just doing the same stuff. But I literally got an appraisal today. My all in on this project, including rehab, was $125,000. That's not my money. I didn't save it. I actually borrowed it from a hard money lender, and I had to pay interest on it, right? But no big deal. Guess what it appraised for today? Just take a wild guess.
What state?
It's in Memphis.
165.
225. 225, you guys.
Wow.
I probably won't pull all that money out because the rent won't cover it, but I have the ability, if I wanted to, pull out $40,000 tax-free today. That I traded money out of thin air. And the cool part is I'm going to keep that house long-term. It's going to appreciate. It's going to get paid off principal. I'm going to turn it into a Section 8 because I like to have a sprinkle of those in my portfolio. I'm also going to, if I refinance correctly, I'll be able to get cash flow. And on the back end, it's tax advantages. If someone just handed you a check for 40 grand tax-free, like everyone would think it's the coolest thing in the world. Here's the thing is no one's handing this to us. We're working hard for it. There's systems and processes, but we're trying to tell you on this talk today that if two guys like us could do it, it's possible. You just got to get around the right people. You got to want it. And it's not always great, which is going to lead me into the next question. What is the worst thing that's ever happened to you in real estate? And how did you handle it? Because firemen get into bad situations all the time on the job. Not bad. We help other people with bad situations, but how do we take what we've learned in problem solving, resources, working as a crew, put that into the real estate world? And what did you come across? Let me know.
Man, oh yeah. So that's been my third deal. Had a contractor, take some money from me, and I felt like I did, all the things right. I vetted. He started the first day, went to lunch, and never came back. Right, so. For me, it was, again, going out. My mental was so messed up because I was so invested in this property mentally. It killed me, and it was at that point, you're kind of like, is this for me? Like, I don't know if this is really for me, but it was really good because, again, being around the right people, it's like, dude, that was chump change. Let me tell you my story, and it makes you feel so better because you're like, it's not only me, right? And that's where, again, me talking to guys at work, they was bashing me. They was on me hard. Oh man, I told you, right? But what happened is that ended up being my best deal. Even with all the issues, I'm still chasing bad plumbing issues from the second contractor. I am still to this day chasing bad plumbing from this deal. But because I bought so right, it's still my best deal in my portfolio right now. So for me, again, it's powerful because, again, being around the right people have really shown me like things happen, but it's how you react to those things happening and what you do from there. Do you put that system and process into play to where it never happens again? Now, if it happens again, shame on you, right? So that's where, again, being around those guys and the different communities that I've been in, it has really helped and has shown me that, again, things happen, but the systems and processes is kind of what takes over. And if you do it right, then you'll be okay.
Yeah, I think it's I'll share my worst real quick because it parallels that perfectly. But the reality of it is real estate's not easy. You have to understand the systems and the processes. You have to plan for them though. Like you got to know you're one problem away from having a very bad financial problem. And again, I'm not telling you who your mentor should be. It just needs to be somebody that has experience, because when you come across these situations, which you will, chances are your mentor has probably gone through them already. And so they're going to keep you out of those situations the best they can. But stuff happens. There's just shady people out there. This project that I just talked about in Memphis, the same exact thing happened to me. And this is property number 18, by the way. So like I consider myself somewhat of a seasoned investor. I paid $8,000 up front, and the contractor just walked. And it ended up being like this crazy Ponzi scheme. I literally still feel embarrassed about it, but this is part of a growing opportunity for all of us. I feel like, how did I get taken advantage of? I have the right systems in place. You know what? We can't control bad people, you guys. And so, I was shown a scope of work that was not what it needed to be. So I ended up paying a little bit more on the back end. That was like, oh yeah, the flooring's good. So here's what happened. I decided I can either cry about it or I can fix the problem. And I'm a fixer, right? And so I go in there and I get a new contractor, get a reference for experience, realize that I'm not going to pay him up front this time. He pulls up the subfloors, literally rotted to the ground. Like there was almost no floors. And I'm going, oh my gosh, like how did I get myself into the situation? I'm doing this from 2,000 miles away. I've never even been to Memphis, you guys. So, so
Wow.
the story is like, you just got to move on, and you got to pull up your big girl and big boy pants and fix the problem. We ended up having to jack up the house, fix all the subfloor. That is the same exact house that today appraised for 225. So if I had given up, that could have either bankrupted me or made me quit. But on the other end of that, there's a shiny rainbow waiting for you. You just got to. I'm going to be better at it, and I want to teach this stuff to people, because I don't want people to think this is super simple. I want them to know that it's not, but there's ways if you get around the right people. I guarantee after this call, getting to know Tony really well, I'm going to reach out to him and, hey, let's talk about that credit card stuff, and let's talk about this and this market. We're all here to help. And so I appreciate you sharing that story. I have one last question, and then we could obviously keep going, talk about whatever you want. But if you could look back at Tony when he got hired, young rookie Tony, knows nothing about firefighting, knows nothing about real estate, and it doesn't have to be real estate related, but what would you say to yourself now that you're an older, wiser, better looking guy than you were when you first got started? What would you say to yourself?
I would have, told him to get around the right people early. Get around people who, again, understand the value of assets. Obviously, I'm biased about real estate. That would be my main focus, but it would also be, taking advantage of the overtime, but putting it up in order to be in a better position to buy more real estate. Obviously, everybody looks back and say, "I wish I would have bought more," but it's true, right? I've not heard many people say, "I bought too many." Right? Like I bought too many. I wish I wouldn't have bought. It's always, I wish I would have bought more. So that will probably be my number one thing, is just to take advantage of the opportunities that come your way. Don't jump unless you learn how to build that parachute on the way down, right? I think, sometimes, we want to know everything before it happens, right? We want to know we've built that parachute before we jump. I would say, learn enough to where you feel comfortable building that parachute in the sky. That's what I always kind of, really try to get around to my kids, and just younger kids that I train now, was just like, you're not going to know everything. Know enough to where you're dangerous, but know that, hey, don't touch that. If you touch that hot object and it's hot, then pull back, but you got to at least touch it to know that it's hot. So that would probably be the number one thing I would say, is just, take advantage of opportunities that come your way. Be selective in the information you get, and do your own research before you jump into things. I spent a lot of money on silly things, man. Just from a materialistic thing, and also the a couple get rich quick schemes that I jumped into early from guys around the firehouse that knew about this stock or this meme, this thing, so it's for me, it was like, I would have been, really understanding the value of a physical asset, and kind of going all in on real estate early.
Awesome. So because I want to, what I'm going to do with a lot of my guests is I'm going to hold you guys accountable, and what I'm going to do is I want to ask you your goals. Just maybe like a 5-year goal, or let's start with a year goal, because I'd love to have you back on. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think the listeners are going to love what you had to say. But tell me your 1-year goal, and we're putting this in the universe, because now we're all going to come back and be like, Tony, did you do that? And so, like, what do you got going on?
Yeah.
What's your plan?
So first, I really want to say, like, I truly enjoy being a firefighter. So my goal is always to, I want to do this job and retire being a fireman. So my goal is to not, to leave my job, like you hear all the influencers say, right? Quit your job, go all in on real estate. For me, real estate is my superpower. Banks are fighting over me because of my W-2, right? So I value my job. I truly enjoy going to my job every day. So there's not a day that I'm like, man, I hate going in. I truly enjoy my job. I just want to get that out there. But for me, so my 2 to 3 year goal, or just year goal, I want to buy 2 to 3 properties each year, and I want to have enough to where I can self-manage once I retire. For me, that is ideal. That's an ideal situation for me. The next big goal is to help my mom get her first property, because she's always been a renter. Like I said, she's made some crazy sacrifices for us. So we're now in a position where me and my brothers and sisters have really discussed getting her into her first property and running that play with getting her opportunity to own some property in order to help her with her retirement. And then it would be pretty sweet if I can get at least my immediate family all the property within the next 6 years. That's my like really big goal, is to help my immediate family see the light of real estate, and they are like my brother just did some conversions. He was a football coach, so he had all these different funds and things like that. So he just converted it all to a self-directed IRA, which was a big deal. I had been talking to him about it, own him hard, and he finally did it. He's like, what was I waiting for? And I'm like, I get it. Like, I'm just little Tony to most people. But I'm like, if I talk about something, I've done significant research on it. So trust me on some of the things that I'm going to talk about, because it's going to be the same thing over and over, like a loop. I always say I'm on a loop. I talk about real estate, talk about credit card hacking, because we travel, we travel a lot. We get a lot of different points, and then I talk about the fire service. So it's all kind of this loop that I always talk about. But I'm so passionate about all these things, and if I talk about it, I've done significant research on it.
Awesome. Well, I have no doubt in my mind you'll probably exceed those goals, but I really appreciate your sharing your story. Honestly, Tony, it means the world to me. You're all the way across the entire country, but like, we're very similar. So just real quick recap, guys, some of the stuff that we talked about today. I think obviously you listened to the whole thing, but number one, read the Rich Dad Poor Dad. I got copies for you. If you want it, Tony and I got us started. So I'll send you a copy if you want it. Number two, give back to the community. Like we both came up with coaches in our lives. If you could mentor someone in any way, whether it be on the job or off the job, find a way to give back. I think that's a huge thing. Start as early as you can. Find a mentor, reach out to someone doing it. I think probably we could talk a little bit more later about the credit card stuff and ways to fund projects, because I think that gives a lot of people anxiety. And finally, take care of your moms. Take care of your moms. Okay. They deserve it. So again, thank you so much for your time. Before I go, how could people get a hold of Tony? And guys, please get a hold of Tony, because he obviously knows what the heck he's doing in real estate. And I know he'd be more than willing to share his story. The more of us that do this together and grow as a community, it's a very plentiful thing, real estate. And we're not here to hoard it. We're not here to hoard our secrets about it. We want you to be successful. I don't want you to be a statistic on a peer support call one day. I want you to be someone who calls Tony and I and goes, thank you guys for what you did and the talks. How do we get a hold of you?
Hey, so first of all, everybody loves those success stories, right? Like it's almost like the rougher you grew up in, the more, success story that like people gravitate to. I'm truly that person. Like, learning disability, dyslexia, grew up in a rough area, should have been statistics. I literally just had like HIPAA is here, and I'm not going to share much, but I had a guy that I grew up with that got stabbed, that I took care of, that I helped. I literally helped him. I patched him up, right? Like, and we grew up together, played football. He went this way, I went this way, right? And if it wasn't for my mom and the mentors and everybody that was around me, it would have been rough. So fireman_flip on Instagram. Please reach out. I'll be willing to help as much as I can.
All right, Tony, thank you so much, man. We'll have you back on, and guys, stay tuned for the next episode. We have another awesome first responder coming up. There's going to be a police officer. Don't judge me. I hang out with all first responders, but that'll be a fun one. But anyway, thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the next one, and reach out to either of us if you have any questions. I'm going to put Tony's information in the description. Make sure you follow him, please, on Instagram and all his social medias, because he's awesome. So take care. Peace.